Life is all about relationships. Lovers, family, body, or money. How satisfied you are can be completely explained by how you relate to things around you. This is Sophie Jaffe, and together with my husband, Dr. Adi Jaffe, we are here to explore and teach you how to maximize your relationships and achieve a happier life. Let's get ignited.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Ignited Podcast. I'm Adi Jaffe.
And I'm Sophie Jaffe. And
we're really excited to bring you guys another one of these Getting Personal episodes.
Yep. So magical.
So amazing. I really have to give these people props for these couples just coming forward and being willing. I mean, obviously they're doing work and they're helping themselves, but also being willing to do it so publicly. It's just incredible. How many messages would you say you got from people about the last time we did this?
At least dozens within that first day.
Yeah, I got, I don't have quite the following you have, but I probably got like 10 to 15 messages from people saying, oh my God, just getting to listen to another couple going through this was so ridiculously powerful because, look, we all want to be a fly on the wall, really, when these conversations are happening because we get to learn so much from other people's stuff, even when we don't want to reveal our own.
Absolutely. Learn about their stuff. It helps us relate to our own issues better.
Absolutely.
And just have more appreciation for whatever it is that we're going through.
Yeah. And so many times we think we're the only ones going through it. And then through somebody else's story, we actually figure out that not only are we not alone, but that there's another couple who's in a different stage, doing worse, doing better than us, whatever. And I think it made a lot of people feel already safer in the relationship while also giving them tips.
Yeah, I just feel like for me personally, hearing other people go through their stuff is just a reminder of where I am and a reflection of how things I want to work on in my relationship. And it helps me see my relationship and my part in my relationship with a different set of eyes, with a new perspective.
Well, we get this almost every week in our couple support group.
Yeah.
And people ask me about that all the time. What's the couple support group you're talking about? But, not only do you have to be in LA, you got to get into this group and it only meets once a week.
Yeah, we're going to start our own, you guys. We're going to start one in LA and maybe we'll find a way to make it a virtual
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is kind of like, for now, the next best thing for people because they get to share from what we have. Now, I think we got to point out to people. So you were there 100% of the time for the Lacey and Daryl one.
Mm-hmm.
And what was amazing was that one, it was a little bit of a mess, right? Like we're in Israel, the noise, there's traffic noise in the background, all this stuff. And they had their kids running around.
Yeah. We
did a lot better with sound this time. So it's totally
better quality.
It feels like a normal podcast to a lot of people. And yet, we've got Chelsea and John this time. Totally different story. You'll hear it's like a completely different story, but so much the same.
I actually can't wait to listen to the rest of it. I had to sneak out because it was Leo's birthday party and I actually missed it the week before, like a couple days before. This was recorded on a Monday. On that Friday, I was supposed to bring cake pops to his camp and I had them all in the car. I was set to go. And then it took 2 hours to get through my doctor's appointment, my postpartum doctor's appointment. And it was just a doctor's appointment I could not miss.
Yeah.
So I missed his whole birthday thing on that Friday. So we celebrated on Monday and I couldn't miss this one. So I'm really sad that I missed it, but I can't wait to listen to it when I can.
Flourless, gluten-free.
Yeah, when I say cake pops, I mean kosher, gluten-free, dairy-free.
It was like a lava
gluten-free
cake and cake pop.
Yeah, it was amazing.
But
they were so good.
Oh, so amazing. So you're going to get to hear part of this yourself, but it was incredible. I want you guys to listen and, listen all the way to the end, even if you can't do it in one listen, because their story is incredible. It takes us a little while to get through all the details. And then I feel like in the end, it totally comes together.
I can't wait to listen to it.
Can't wait. So wait for this little break right here. We will be back right after with Chelsea and John.
Love you guys. Thanks so much for listening.
See you on the other side.
This episode of the Ignited Podcast is brought to you by Philosophy Superfoods. The Philosophy offers cleanses and other nutritional products that are unlike any of the other supplements and detoxification programs on the market. Why? because they actually nourish the body with whole, live, nutrient-rich foods instead of depriving you and leaving you hungry. Have you ever tried a cleanse only to find out that you can't make it through a whole day because you're starving? Ever try a superfood shake that made you nauseous because it was so disgusting you'd rather not eat? The Philosophy fixes all that with a simple set of offerings that load up your body with nutrients while actually tasting good. Makes sense, right? Each of the Philosophy superfood and protein blends is vegan, raw, gluten-free, and has absolutely no filler ingredients. With over 15,000 satisfied customers, including some of the world's biggest celebrities like George Clooney, Gerard Butler, Lea Michele, and over 10 years of experience, this is the best stuff you can get. To buy some or find out more info, go to our website, thephilosophy.com.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Ignited Podcast. We're here for usually this is the conversation part of what we're doing, but in this getting personal kind of new feature that we're having on the podcast, it's not just going to be Sophie and I, and we're not just going to be interviewing an expert or a social media influencer or anything like that. But instead, what we really want to do is get you guys to be able to be in on the process of self-improvement, actually be able to watch and listen and get some tips while people who are probably struggling with something very close to what you're struggling with yourself are talking to us. And so with that in mind, we have Chelsea and John with us here today. Welcome, guys.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having us.
We were talking a little bit before. I'm sorry, John, I'm going to call you out within 5 seconds of the thing. Chelsea is much more excited about the concept of doing this than John is, and I'll tell our listeners exactly what I told you guys before, which is it's the most common thing that I hear from every single couple that we work with. It's the groups that we go to. It's not always, but it's almost always. There are always exceptions, but it's almost always that delineation where women have an easier time sharing. And men kind of go like, I don't really know that I want to even talk about this right now. And so I want to start with that because I want to just honor and applaud both of you for doing this. For showing up. I think the hardest thing is to do that first outreach and ask for the help and
being open
and be there for it.
Yeah,
no doubt. As hard as that is, everything else gets easier. And so I really, really want to honor that. I know how tough it is. I remember how tough it was for us when we got started on this journey. And so I really want to respect that and give it the weight that it deserves. And then what I really like starting with, just so that we get to know you better, you emailed us about the specific issues, but I always like talking. People don't get to see the video chat part of this, but I always like talking to people face to face. Do you mind walking us a little bit through your story and what's going on?
Sure. I have a tendency, so in the vein, right, of the woman being the one who's all gung-ho to dive into the things, I have a tendency to immediately jump in first. So with that, I'm actually going to let you start with sharing our story.
Well, you're also just much better with words than I am. You're a speaker. And that's why I normally let you tell. Okay. Starting from the beginning, like I can tell how we met and all that, but
I would say tell whatever part you feel is relevant.
Yeah.
I don't want to put any boundaries on that.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I don't know. I guess we knew each other for a while and met through work and then started dating, like really in a flash.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm not good with words.
Okay. So we met. Work was a super crusty, hipster-infested pizza place.
Okay.
Great pizza.
Oh, great pizza. Such good beer. I've learned a lot, like everything I know about craft beer. It really gave me my hipster street cred. I always wanted to be a hipster, but I never quite got there until working there. So we met there. Both of his sisters actually also worked there, so I knew both of them before I met him. And I've always kind of said, if I hadn't known his sisters before knowing him, he probably would never have had a shop. But I was like, okay, if he's related to them, like there's got to be something. There's something cool there.
Okay.
And so but we met and honestly just like partied together. We were both very much in our sort of partying, numbing out from all the things days. So we honestly just partied together a lot. And then I actually moved a couple of times after we first met, and I came back. I had been living in New York and moved back to Tallahassee. And he saw me one day. He was working at the same restaurant as my sister and saw me and started asking about me. She made a comment and laughed about it and was like, guess who's asking about you? Turns out I still had his number, so I texted him because I was curious, and so we started dating. And then dated for a few years. We will have been married for 2 years come September.
Okay.
And there was definitely it was definitely not like we got together and everything was great and head over heels. Like, there was some tumultuous stuff and like we kind of dated on and off. Early on into our relationship, before we had kind of like the talk about, are we just dating? Are we just sleeping together? Early on into that, you ghosted on me for an entire weekend. We had plans together and just completely like gone, not answering phone calls, didn't know where I was.
This is before you had a talk about how the status of the relationship.
Yep. So
4th of July weekend?
4th of July weekend, we were going to go to a mutual friend's party together. I went and didn't know where he was and was just kind of like, I hope you're alive. At a certain point, like, I guess I'm going to hang out at the party. And then I think the next day, somewhere shortly thereafter, we met up, and that's when I learned that, do you want to share this part?
What? Why I left?
What was going on the 4th of July weekend?
Yeah, why you disappeared.
I went to a friend's house, a friend's family gathering, to get out of town because I was struggling with a cocaine addiction at the time.
Okay.
So instead of going to a party where I knew that would be going on, I went and hung out with my friends' nephews and nieces and like just shut myself off from the entire city of Tallahassee and like actually went to a different state.
So in an interesting way, you actually made the responsible decision for the 4th of July weekend, just maybe weren't in the place in the relationship with Chelsea where you wanted to share.
Exactly. And didn't even want to share that part of it with her. But then when I got back, realized how insensitive it was. And like, I straight up turned I don't think I turned it off. I just wasn't answering.
I think you're
like, I still had my phone, but like so it's like, okay, he could just be in a ditch with his phone next to him. So then I told her everything so like that she would understand that I wasn't just ghosting to shady, but to try and be less shady, actually.
Yeah. Okay. So
that's when you made a conscious decision, or like had a conscious conversation. Like, this is where we're going to go from here. Here's where we are now. Okay.
Cool. Yeah.
And that was 4 years ago.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So we were kind of in that way, no stranger to those like deep conversations and that decision of like, whatever shows up, we're in it. Because that happened, like, we'd been seeing each other and hanging out for like, I don't know, 6 weeks or something like that. At that point, it hadn't been very long. So fast forward through, other stuff, that happens in relationships. But then getting to about this time a year ago, I guess actually almost 2 years ago, I left my corporate job to become a coach, to become an entrepreneur, to do all of that. which brought up so many of my worthiness wounds. I had so much of like my identity was wrapped up in that ability to succeed professionally. So all of a sudden, like September, October of 2016, so much pressure was getting put on him of like, I was just trying to totally shift my need to be validated away from my working life and onto him. So that was an interesting dynamic that shifted.
Can I just ask a really quick question? So is that because something felt off about switching to coaching, or it didn't feel genuine, or how did it not jive with your definition of success?
Well, so first and foremost, it was slow going and getting started, right? I didn't have the immediate like, oh my gosh, all the clients who are telling me I'm amazing and everyone wants to work with me. And like, I didn't have that external validation, which just made the wound that had been feeling like it needed to be externally validated just come that much to the fore. So I think that was part of it, that I'd kind of like had a Band-Aid on it of like, I would get high on the professional successes and the promotions and stuff.
Sure. And
when that was gone and I was trying to build a business, because it's not like I walked into a business where I had a steady flow of clients already and I was really successful already. I was starting it. I was really starting it from scratch. And then it's also just a hell of a lot more vulnerable to be showing up as, hey, these are the things I've been through and I'm going to show up and help you go through them too.
Yeah.
It was both pieces.
So you were saying that was affecting your relationship with John because now you were relying on him for a lot more bolstering up and introduction of kind of making you feel confident in a way that he wasn't responsible for before.
Yeah, I think, do you feel like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump to you real quick. How did that show up for you?
Well, at that same time, I was probably about 4 months into opening a new restaurant, and working like 70 hours a week and like trying to make enough money to where she could follow her dream to be a coach. So I, for a while, didn't even pick up on it that she needed that. Like, cause I put my nose down and was making sure she could do what she wanted to do.
Yeah. And she wasn't, it's not like she was asking for it directly.
Not at first.
She had a need that wasn't clear.
Yeah. I was just ignorant to it, or like I just wasn't picking up on it. Like things started to feel off. Like I knew there was something she wasn't getting, but at the same time, like my focus was on making money for us, so that like I thought if she didn't have to worry about money, she would be happy. Like, that I didn't be there to give her that encouragement because she was able to be doing what she needed to do.
Which is such a classic. I mean, you know, if we go back to very stereotypical kind of male-female roles, right? The guy's kind of thinking to himself, as long as I take care of the rent and the bills and the money for food, everything else will take care of itself.
Yeah, that's how I was raised.
Yeah, it's totally true. As long as you don't mind divorce and and you know unhappy families and cheating on a regular basis. Like if you don't mind those three things, that formula works really, really well.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so
and nice foreshadowing there.
What's that?
Nice foreshadowing there.
Right. Well, that's not.
You don't mind those things.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been through them myself. And can I just ask a question, John? Were you actually able to, like, so you're putting in the time? I mean, opening a restaurant is tough by itself. You're putting in the time. Did it feel like it was manifesting? It was working?
The restaurant was working, but I was putting so much into that I was maybe home 30 hours a week.
Yeah.
Maybe. Like, and it deteriorated from there because once things started to shift to a worse place for Chelsea and I then started going out drinking with work friends and like just going out, and then that even devolved into me starting doing drugs again. Like,
okay. Yeah. So things weren't good at home. Chelsea's getting to chase her dreams. Like in some ways, if you look at it from the outside, it looks so great, right?
Yeah.
John's opening a new restaurant. It's going well. Chelsea's got to quit her gilded cage and go to this magnificent new life as a coach and an entrepreneur. But in reality, the feeling you both were having was John's working his butt off thinking, okay, as long as I handle what I need to handle, everything will be okay. But then it wasn't. And it was more and more distance was created at home. And so, John, you started distancing yourself from home and said, you know what? Even the 30 hours I normally get at home is a little too much right now. Let me get like 20 at home and then 10 out with my buddies just so I can relax a little bit before I have to go deal with what's at home.
Yep. And that's exactly the mentality I had for a while.
Yeah.
And Chelsea, what was it feeling like from your standpoint? So you started, it wasn't going, not that it wasn't going well, but it was just the regular entrepreneurial thing. You have to pick up steam, etc. And John's at work and you need him for these specific things that you don't know how to vocalize yet. Well, from that point forward, what was happening the way you saw it?
So and the way I'm speaking about it now is so different than I have so much more clarity around it. Because in the moment, it was just kind of a similar place of like something's funky in the relationship, feeling kind of neglected because he was always out. He was always at work or going out or drinking. Big fears and triggers around like anytime he did go out or if he came home drunk, because it just shadowed back to like, are you just going to disappear for a weekend again? Like it had been a theme in our
Was that one July 4th incident the only incident at this point that you had to like reference, or there were other ones that came up throughout? Okay.
Yeah. We actually broke up kind of for about, 8 months at one point, 8 months, because I kept finding cocaine baggies in the laundry. I kept finding drugs. I found out he wasn't paying our rent. Like there was a lot of stuff that, the secrecy and hiding pieces. So before we got married, we actually split up for about half a year because of that. So it was definitely something that had a lot of kind of pieces layered on top.
That's when I moved to Charlotte.
Yeah.
So now you're both in it. At this point, things aren't working out. John, you're escaping. Chelsea, what was your reaction to all this?
My reaction was to turn to my workaholism. And there was a big inflection point, I think that I'll get to in just a second. But I turned to my workaholism, and actually like April of last year, I kind of started getting that external validation from my clients. The clients were coming in. I scheduled my first photo shoot, which as an entrepreneur felt very, it felt very fancy. And I was like, oh, I've made it. I'm here. I'm like, I have a photo shoot. And we went together and had a fantastic time. And so things were kind of happening. And I feel like at that point, maybe like your schedule had shifted, like April of last year.
Yeah, we just started getting in a routine. We were prepping.
Yeah, things were really good. Yeah. And then, but it wasn't a point of like things were really good. We really talked about things and fixed the deep underlying stuff. We just had the external validation pieces kind of falling into place.
Yeah, the environment kind of shifted just enough so that it clicked for you both. You were having fun. There was new stuff to experience, a photo shoot, some success with the restaurant. And so you guys felt like, things just got better.
I feel like it's also like a healthy distraction. Like it's not like it's bad distractions. You weren't out partying and like, or whatever, like good and bad are all relative, right? But in this case, you were growing and you were learning and all this great stuff was happening and it was distracting. So you didn't have to focus on the other stuff.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. So things were good. And then one Wednesday morning, I was actually at a coffee shop waiting for a local client. She was running a few minutes late. So I opened my personal email and I got an email that my dad had scheduled the night before. And it was his suicide note. So that obviously, and my relationship with my dad was complicated at best, toxic at worst. And so it shook up a lot of stuff. And it was a thing, both his parents are alive, my mom's still alive, my sister's but he made me the executor, so I suddenly was dealing with everything. And once again, the dynamic of kind of projecting, previously it was me expecting Jonathan to kind of fill my need for something. And at this point, and again, not something I realized I was doing at the time, but in the aftermath of my dad's suicide, it kind of got to a point where it didn't feel safe to express my anger to any of my family members, to my sister, to my mom. There wasn't a safe outlet for me to express. So everything kind of got funneled onto him.
And you mentioned this. So first of all, just to be clear, I mean, it's got to be, I don't care what your relationship with your dad was, that's got to be a pretty shocking, traumatic experience, unless you're estranged, and even then it's probably tougher than you expect it to be. And the whole thing, right, like scheduling it out, etc. So knowing that he's going to hit you the next morning, and I'm just imagining, I mean, we can get into this later on, but I just want to recognize and honor the pain of that. It seems like you've processed at least some of it, but I'm sure it's almost like you can just picture yourself in that moment in time because it had such an impact.
Oh, absolutely. I very viscerally, in a moment, can put myself back in that state. And my dad and I, as much as our relationship was funky, my sister hadn't spoken to him in several years. So yes, I can attest, even if you are estranged, it rocks your world. But he and I were very close,
okay.
Very, very, very close. So it definitely, it's been a process of moving through that. And actually, interestingly, something that at this point I do see as such a tremendous gift. It started such a beautiful process of unraveling that it's really something I've been able to become really grateful for. Not that it's not traumatic and painful and all the things, but yeah, it's something that the overarching emotion surrounding it is actually gratitude.
Wow.
Beautiful.
I mean, that's an incredible place to get to within a couple of years.
What a gift.
I mean,
1 year, right?
Yeah, it was last April.
In 1 year.
Just 1 year. Wow. I think Sophie and I both look at trauma in that way. Oftentimes, it's not always that way, but oftentimes it'll reveal to you the work that you have to do, and then if you manage to get the work done, if you start progressing, it can actually make you a much, much better person.
Yeah.
So that happened a year and 3 months ago, whatever. You just mentioned, and even more pressure gets on John. Now, at that moment, you're actually doing relatively well, not because you addressed the underlying issues, but because things are going well. What happened? What happened at that moment?
As I say, I can keep going. But
for me, that's when things all started going downhill. That from that point, there was nothing I could do that was right, is the way I felt. And part of me was like, she just needs to be angry. It's okay for her to be angry at you. And then I started, after a while, to feel like I wasn't enough, like I couldn't do anything. And I remember there was one night she was mad that I got home early and she wasn't there. She yelled at me for that. And I turned to drinking and working more, like I always did. But I started to feel like there was nothing good enough.
Yeah. I get a sense, I don't know if this is true or not, but you guys talked about both having a tumultuous childhood and growing up experience. I get a sense, I was going to ask right here, what did it mean to you that you couldn't help Chelsea? What did it mean to you that no matter what you did, it didn't make things okay or right? Maybe I'll start there.
It hurt because like I knew I didn't fully understand. Like, even though I felt like I was going through it with her, I didn't fully understand. But when we would get in arguments, like, it would come up that I don't understand, and like it just created a lack feeling for me, like that I wasn't ever going to be able to do anything to understand. Like
it was unattainable.
Yeah, like unless I personally went through it with my parent, like I could never be there for her.
Okay.
Like no matter how hard I tried, because I'll never hopefully know that pain.
Yeah. And I get that, and I think that's probably really common. But there's another layer I'm catching under here. Like, yes, you were being maybe there was anger directed at you, and there were emotions directed at you because you couldn't understand. But I get a sense somehow that there was meaning to you not being able to, I don't know, be I'm making a metaphor out of this, but of her knight in shining armor, or that you couldn't make this pain go away for her, or that you couldn't do the thing that would shut it off somehow.
I kind of honestly hated her dad too. So
okay.
I couldn't fully support, like, I felt bad, but like there are things that I did not respect him. He was nice, but there are things I couldn't look past, and so I couldn't be as hurt, and I couldn't be there because I saw it. Like,
okay,
I don't know.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. So you're sitting there wanting to support your partner, but if I can, look, I don't have the emotional attachment that you guys have to it in this moment, and I see how hard it is to even talk about this for you two. But in a way, you almost felt like you had to pretend to grieve for somebody you really were kind of happy was gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough.
So you're being yelled at. There's anger directed towards you, and you're kind of, if I can, and again, there's no good or bad about this, right? It's just our reality. You're almost resentful that you even have to pay a price, because like, why is this guy being treated this way when you don't see him when he was alive? You don't see him as deserving of this sort of reaction, I guess, and attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was actually a very common reaction, that something I think that compounded it. My mom had that reaction of kind of like, my mom had the underlying reaction that he had, but she expressed it. My sister had that reaction. A lot of people had that sort of, why is everyone sort of extolling him so grandiosely? And I don't know if maybe that.
Oh, I felt like I had to be supportive.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't jump on that bandwagon because I saw the way her family's reactions were affecting her, and like, because she had the best relationship with him out of any single one of his relatives, even his brother, I'd say. Mm-hmm. So I felt like I would be like the last straw if I would have projected those underlying things like the rest of her family did.
Okay. So here's kind of what I was feeling was this sense, going back to what we were talking about really at the beginning, was you knew what your role was as a man.
Yeah.
Your role in that place was to be a rock. It was to be the guy who could get yelled at, be the guy who could be berated, be the guy who could do nothing right for any period of time. Even if you completely disagree with the premise of what was going on, because maybe if nobody else was giving Chelsea the message that this guy's nobody to be mourned, even if nobody else was saying that to her, you probably wouldn't have felt like you could. But other people were doing it to her, and you saw the reaction, and you said to yourself, I can't be another person that adds that to her mix.
Yeah.
Okay. And the reason I wanted to understand what it was that was underlying this is, again, at the core of my core belief is that everybody's doing the absolute best they can all the time. And so in this time, Chelsea's going through this. You can't do anything to really help it, which, by the way, you can't, right? Yeah. There is, short of erasing her memory, there is nothing you can do to make this experience better. And then that's exacerbated by the fact that you can't even be yourself. You can't even be honest about your feelings around this because they're not congruent with the way you think you need to behave. So probably a pretty terrible situation anyway. In there, you need to deal with it somehow. So now Chelsea has to figure out how to deal with her issues, and I want to understand how that happened for you anyway, Chelsea. But then, John, for you turn to what you know works.
Yeah, working and drinking.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And did you mention that drug use came back in at some point, or?
That was
toward the end.
Towards the end, after Chelsea moved out.
Okay.
For a little while.
Okay, so it got
in there.
Yeah. This got so bad that you guys couldn't actually live together anymore.
Yeah.
And how are you dealing with all this during this time, Chelsea?
Honestly, I shortly before my dad died, I was doing an Ayurvedic workshop, and without getting into the gist of it, the instructor triggered the hell out of me by talking about victim stories, and I had a long conversation with her. She recommended I read The Untethered Soul, and I had this big, sort of spiritual awakening just before my dad died. And so that kind of diving deep, I've been teaching yoga for a while. I've been sort of dancing on the edge of accepting being a spiritual being and having sort of a spiritual path. But I'd never really dived into it. And then that happening right before my dad died, I just instantaneously was like, oh, clearly it's a sign. This has been, sent to me. And so I just dove into spiritual exploration, all the new age healing things. Okay. So that's how I was dealing with it, which added sort of another texture of, I was becoming something I know that just from talking with people and talking with so many different women, I did that thing where the woman in the partnership becomes interested in something and is like, hey, honey, please let me take you along for the ride of this new growth healing technique. So on top of the kind of putting that processing on him, I was also putting some sort of here, you heal your stuff, and projecting that onto him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then part of it, part of how I was handling it, or part of how I handled it, was to make the decision that, hey, our relationship is becoming really toxic. I think we need some space, because I could tell he was trying to avoid me. He was going out and drinking. That was triggering me. That was making me more angry and tempestuous. So that's when I decided, we'd been planning on moving together. But I let him know, hey, let's keep the apartment. I'm going to move out to the house, and we're going to take some space. Not with the intention of separating.
Yeah.
But we're going to take some geographic space, so we can both kind of get our energy right. So that was the plan. And a few days after I moved out is when he started having an affair.
Okay. Yeah. Did the cocaine already come in, or that took a little bit?
That was before the cocaine came in. Okay. It was drinking, but the drugs hadn't came back in at that point.
Okay. Where had you met the woman, or what was the story behind that?
She was an employee of mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So met her at work.
Yeah. And now you guys are separate.
At the time, I was going to say right now.
No, right now you're not. But I'm saying you were physically separated at that time.
Yeah.
How did you find out? What
The short answer is Tallahassee's a small town. An old acquaintance of mine. Interesting random tidbit. The guy I actually lost my virginity to saw him making out with her at a bar. That guy was very close friends with one of my best friends. He told her, she told me.
He also kissed me that night.
So,
I didn't hear that. What was that, John?
I said the gentleman, also kissed me that night too. He left that part out.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
It was
small town
bar.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, and this kind of you found out, how long ago did you find out?
That was actually, it's coming up on like right around a year ago.
Okay. And what was the reaction as soon as you found out?
Well, so the friend was actually being like very clingy and like, hey, when can I see you? When can I see you? Like I could tell something was wrong. And our schedules were just crisscrossing. So it got to a point where I was like, okay, she was working at a restaurant. So I was like, I'm coming to see you. So I received the news in public. So my initial reaction was very calm, very tempered. And then I screamed and sobbed and fell apart in my car.
But you didn't find out right away then, you find out days?
A few days later. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it started on a Thursday. I found out the next Tuesday. And it's funny. I totally had an instinctual, like the moment it happened, I was like, something's wrong. So I had a feeling something was wrong, but I actually found out that Tuesday.
Okay.
And my initial response, honestly, was to scream, to cry, to kind of really just let everything out, and then to binge drink. So I actually, that friend who told me came over to the house afterward. My sister lives in Australia, so I actually FaceTimed with her once it was a reasonable time to do so.
Yeah.
So I just kind of that night ended up sort of surrounded by friends. I actually didn't immediately confront him. But I just kind of surrounded myself with friends and drank a lot of wine and kind of pressed through. Like, I feel like the initial response, and this is what everyone's sort of initial response was like, okay, well, fuck him, leave him, you're better than, like, right, you already moved out, everything's good.
Sure.
So that was kind of my initial response of like, all right, we're done, that's it, things were already bad. And I was in this sort of place of like, everything's his fault. He's messed everything up. He's doing the drinking. Now he's cheating. Like, I hadn't yet started to sort of hold on, like reclaim my pieces of like projecting stuff on him, blaming him, all that. So that was my initial reaction. We did talk that evening, though, yell, fight is maybe a more accurate. I don't think talk is exactly the correct term.
So you found out in the morning?
Afternoon. He was working though, so. Okay.
You had a few hours of kind of dealing with it, and then you guys talked later at night.
Yeah. And the sort of immediate response was he was apologizing. He, like expressing wanting to stay together, sort of wanting to work through it. So I softened very quickly from like, I'm done, like I'm just going to leave him and divorce him, whatever. And was sort of thinking we would work through it. But there was still a part of me that felt like justified and almost holding it over him.
Yeah.
Of like, you have to let me be angry at you now because you did this. So that played out over the next several days.
And you're referring almost to kind of the anger you had beforehand about not being supported or not feeling like he was doing the right thing around your father's death and all of that.
I think subconsciously I was. At that point, I honestly wasn't even really aware of how much I'd been putting on him.
Okay.
At least not super consciously. But
well,
yeah.
You guys, that's a lot of stuff in a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah.
It's a lifetime. 1 year.
Yeah. You know what, guys? You know what I tell a lot of people? might as well speed up the process and handle it when you're still early in the relationship.
Yeah.
And then you don't have it when you're 45, 50 and feel trapped.
Right. And dealing with kids and house and all the things.
We still love each other through all this. We can get through anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. So it's nighttime. You've talked to your sister. You've talked to your friend. You've had like a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
Now you guys can talk. And so you scream out a little bit.
Yeah. Scream, fight, yell. And I honestly, not much happened that night. Not much productive. But over the next, I think, couple of days, we sort of talked and I think kind of decided like we're going to reconcile somewhat, right?
What's that, John?
For it, yeah.
I don't have much memory.
Fair.
Oh, okay. Because you were drinking a lot?
Yeah. When, like, the day after she moved out, like, I went off. I got bad, like, almost lost my job twice because of it. Like, Doc Holliday level of drinking, I'd say.
Do you know classic Westerns at all?
I don't, but...
Old gunslinger, very famous guns, like the fastest gunslinger around. Drank a lot.
I was drinking over a bottle of whiskey a day.
Yeah.
Just to maintain zero is what I called it then. Is not maintaining a zero at all.
Sure. Well, I mean, just to be able to handle what your brain was throwing at you pretty much from the moment you opened your eyes.
Yeah.
You had to just push feelings down and thoughts, etc.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it worked to do that, although there might have been some unintended consequences along with it.
Yeah, I definitely shut the feelings down, but I achieved that, but it thankfully wasn't what I wanted. I don't know, for a while I wanted to be alone, trying to sabotage my life any way I could, be it with work, with family. Wasn't allowed to see my nephews for a little while because of my drinking.
So everybody else was aware too?
Of the drinking? Oh yeah. Like, I mean, it was hard not to.
And of the affair.
Well, and the affair.
Can I ask a question? I mean, just because the way we're referring to it. So that was you fooling around with this girl at a bar. It sounds like it was a little more extensive than that.
Yeah.
That was the beginning.
That was the beginning, or that was just something that people saw?
Both.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
She came to my birthday.
Yeah.
But nothing happened there. But Chelsea and I had a fight on my birthday when we were going to go.
Well, you hadn't come home the night before.
Yeah. I drank the night before and stayed with a friend, and then we were going out on the river for my birthday, and because Chelsea was upset and because I didn't come home, she didn't come.
And this woman was there, and there was enough that this woman's boyfriend picked up on. Is there something between you guys?
Okay.
But yeah, things became physical that night at the bar, and then they slept together a few nights later. They'd slept together by the time I found out on Tuesday.
Okay.
And then that relationship continued for about 5 months. It ended, so it started in August of last year and ended around December of last year.
Okay.
So it was definitely a bit more extensive than making out at a bar.
Yeah. And you found out about it on that Tuesday, but after that, you guys were talking and trying to figure out what to do and how to reconcile, etc. So if I've been through this enough times and I'm understanding the story, that means that even while you're talking about reconciling it, there's still this affair going on the side. there's still the drinking. All that is still continuing.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you didn't know that right off the bat, Chelsea. And it kind of came out in ongoing discoveries about what was really happening.
Yes, for a bit, and then it got to a point where I did kind of know what was going on.
Okay.
But yeah, I think with the affair, I did keep thinking it was over, and it was sort of one of the things where I definitely was convincing myself that it was over.
Sure.
I sort of knew, like, it really doesn't look like that's what's happening. But I was convincing myself. I think there was, after that Tuesday, I found out, we talked, we're going to kind of try to reconcile, started researching therapists, finding out, like, doing the things that you do. And then it was that Thursday night, we'd gotten into another fight. And I was going to an early workout class Friday morning that was actually close by the apartment, had a feeling. And so I decided before going by that early workout class, I decided to go by the apartment and found them in bed together. So that was another big sort of turning point of, we still wanted to try to reconcile, but that was another, like, we kind of energetically, I think at that point we kind of separated. But yeah, it was sort of a weird kind of mental gymnastics trying to convince myself that everything was fine, even though I knew it wasn't.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. I think it makes a lot of sense. Okay. So that was December. So we're now about 8 months away from where we are right now. And where are you guys now?
In New York City.
We are in New York City. Yeah.
Still healing.
Yeah, definitely still healing. But it was funny. I think that for me, the point where things really shifted to kind of coming back together for sure was actually the first moment. It was right around Christmas, and I'd kind of been holding out, like, is he going to let me? Because my family was shattered. I wasn't spending Christmas with my family. So I was sort of like, can I spend Christmas with your family? Can I do it? Can I do it? And sort of had that, like, sort of clinging to hoping that would work out. And it was like, it got to a point where I just decided, you know what? I'm going to take care of myself for Christmas. I went and visited a very close friend in Jackson, Wyoming. So I had a white Christmas. It was beautiful. And kind of the moment that I made that decision of, like, I'm really completely going to do what's best for me and take care of myself, I think the dynamic kind of shifted. And we talked every day when he was gone, visiting family for Christmas while I was gone. Talked about moving back in, and have been, on kind of a path of...
Spent New Year's together before I moved back in.
We did, yeah. Yeah, we spent New Year's together. But yeah, kind of a path of sort of stumbling through, right? Because it's messy. It's not like we were like, okay, now I booked a ticket to Wyoming and then we were good and he moved back in and everything's fine. Like, it's been messy, and we've been, figuring out what happened, like finding each of our triggers and figuring out how to deal with them in real time.
So what would you say right now, what are still your biggest struggles? You said you're healing. So you moved from Tallahassee to New York. What would you say your biggest struggles are right now?
Mine is, still talking about it is just hard for me. One, because I'm not a talker, as we've established, and connecting with my emotions is something I'm very new to. And around this, a lot of the emotions that come up for me are like shame and self-hate. Like, I don't like talking through things with her because of all the shame that I feel around it, and like how unproud of any of that time I am, but knowing that it's what she needs, like it's a challenge, but like that's one of the biggest things is I don't get to feel bad for myself for the
Sure.
And she does respect, like, sometimes I just, I can answer a couple questions, but then it's like, I need a break from this conversation, but that's the challenge, is getting out of my own shame and self-hate, like, to help her heal, which help her understand, which helps us heal together.
Yeah. What do you think right now, in your deepest awareness, John? What was the role that this affair played in your life?
Tearing it apart, kind of, like, it. I don't know.
What was the good? What was the good that it gave you at the time?
I felt supported. The woman I had the affair with was very much an enabler. And at the point we were at, Chelsea did not like my job. It was something I was proud of. Like, it was my job. Like, it's what I put everything into. And, like, I would come home and she would, like, we would talk about how awful it was. She, like, resented it, and, like, I resented it, but, like, I was really proud of it. And so I felt supported in the affair. Like, she worked there. She saw me at work. She would, build me up. Like,
so you felt supported in the things that had caused struggles between you and Chelsea, but you also felt built up and like somebody was looking up to you.
Yeah, appreciated for what I was doing. Yeah.
Appreciated. Okay.
Chelsea and I struggled with for a while there.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially going back to, this traditional male role of, he felt like he was taking care of things, and he was financially, like, he did allow me and has continued to allow me to build my business. And yet there was still that dynamic of it not being enough for me, or not being kind of the right thing that I needed.
Well, I mean, complicated by so many things. That's why I know we're going to need to dig in deeper. Complicated, for instance, let's say by your father's suicide, and not being able to be there for you the way either you needed to, or the way he felt like you needed to,
or both.
or both. Which led to this feeling of not being able to, not feeling like you could do anything right, John.
Yeah.
In a time where maybe you actually really couldn't get anything right, where that was just the reality of it. But for some reason, and this is why I was wondering before, and I want to dig into it, I'll just bring it up here and maybe see if the trail that I'm chasing is at least warm. I can't help but feel like there was a part in your childhood growing up where that message that you have to be able to figure things out, you have to be able to solve, resolve, support somebody, something along those lines, was built pretty strongly into you. So when that was impossible, because you put up with a lot of shit beforehand,
yeah,
but somehow when that was actually impossible, like, I cannot fix this thing, you found your own way to fall apart.
Yeah, that is quite accurate.
What was it in your childhood growing up? I don't know how many siblings you had or what your role was there, but
I'd say, like, the main one was a divorce, or my parents' separation, where my mother moved me and my younger sister up to North Carolina on the notion that her and my dad were going to work things out. And once we got there, it was revealed that they were separating. And my little sister, being a very sheltered, or not sheltered, but shy individual, it was her freshman year. She had gone to a private school with, like, the same 60 kids her entire life, and started going to a public high school with 2,000 plus students. And after half a year, it wasn't working because I was driving back to Florida every weekend so she could spend the weekends with her with her friends.
Which is like a 12-hour drive. So like get out of school, drive 12 hours, be there Friday night, Saturday, leave. So
that you could take care of your little sister.
Yeah, and after the first semester, she wasn't happy, so I told my mom that I was taking her and we were moving back in with our dad. But my dad traveled a lot for work, so my mom challenged whether or not that was allowed. And I then told her I would challenge her in court for legal rights to my little sister. And we made it work. We moved back down and she ended up graduating with the same.
Did you have to emancipate?
No, she didn't pursue, but I did end up dropping out of high school to get a job to help support because she then refused to help financially support us. My grandmother, my dad's mom, actually ended up moving down to be kind of the legal parent in the household.
The guardian.
Yeah.
Okay. So you don't fuck around.
No, he does not.
Damn. Shit doesn't work out. You try driving 24 hours every weekend to let your sister have an environment that'll be better for her. That doesn't work. So you threaten your mom with court action. How old are you at this point?
I was 17.
Okay, perfect. So you're 17, trying to figure out some custodial arrangement that will allow you to move away from your mom, even though your dad's not really home and can't take care of you there, to take care of your sister.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Yeah. Yeah. She,
you hesitated when you said yeah.
Well, I mean, who knows how different life would have been if,
sure.
Didn't get a high school diploma because of it, but got a GED.
So you had to give up a lot to do that.
Yeah, but it actually, I think it worked out in one way because that's how I got my first kitchen job. And that's how I found my passion for being a chef.
Okay.
But I know too that it actually took me a long time to find out that he didn't have a high school degree. Cause I know you've told or diploma, whatever it's called, there was some shame around it.
Oh yeah.
For you.
Huge amounts of shame.
Yeah.
Mm.
So as much as something really beautiful came out of it.
Yeah, there's shame around it. There's shame. It hurt my mother and I's relationship a little bit. It made it to the point where she's very, even with the affair, she didn't push too much to ask because she knows or she feels like I will cut her out very quickly if I get unhappy with her because I moved me and my sister away.
Okay. Yeah. So, first of all, wow. Secondly, bringing it back to this relationship, I could imagine that when Chelsea's going through what she went through with her dad, first of all, it brought up family issues for you anyway.
Yeah.
Because maybe the separation from your mom wasn't a death, but it was like, I'm leaving you and we're going away. And then on top of it, here you are, the guy who was willing to move him and his little sister away in high school to handle a situation so that his sister will have the life that she wants. And you can't fix this. Chelsea's going through her own hell. You don't even get it. You don't understand why. You're like, fuck that guy. I don't understand why you care so much about him.
Yeah.
But she's going through it and you're living through this thing where it's like Groundhog Day. You wake up every morning, it sucks. Even though life should be going okay in your eyes, it sucks. And there's nothing you can do to fix it. And you've never, from the sound of it, you've never actually had to deal with something where you can't fix it.
Yeah. Gotta run away from it.
Yeah. So you ran.
Yeah. rang from everything.
Yeah. So you mentioned shame, and you mentioned feeling guilty for everything and all those things. But what's, you guys said right now you're still struggling a little bit. What's the overarching feeling? What's like that voice in the back of your head? What's the undertone for you right now, John, of what you're going through with this relationship?
Like in present day, what is hopeful? I mean, yeah. And I don't know, being open with her to where we never get back to the point where I think that's even a possibility again.
Nice. What about you, Chelsea?
The theme right now.
Open honesty. Let me change my theme. Would be open honesty.
Okay.
That's something you taught me. So.
Yeah, good for me.
Yeah.
What is the theme right now? I think the theme that I sort of keep turning back to is like mutual growth, is the fact that because we've gone through the sort of pressure cooker version of healing all the things and experiencing all the things, there are still a lot of landmines, right? If there's a day when he's coming home a half hour later from work, I have this internal battle of, okay, do I freak out, or is it fine, or do I avoid, or do I text him, right? Like I have this internal battle. And I think that's where a lot of the shame comes up, is when I start getting triggered, and then I'm like, okay, we need to talk about the things. Let me understand the things, rehash everything.
Yeah.
Shame, like that pattern keeps replaying. So that's where, like, that's definitely still something that goes on for us. But the big shift is that I think, at least I know, and I think both of us kind of see it as like, we see the opportunity to turn that pain into something good, into a deeper connection, into an ability to like we know each other because we've been through the ugly, like, right? There's not really a part of him that I'm going to see. Maybe, like, we all evolve, but right? Sure. He's seen me, like, he's seen my crazy. She definitely came out during the affair. Like, she came out to play.
I mean, by the way, I think she had all the rights to come out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, let's not, you're calling it, you're crazy. Like, you're the insecurities, the despair, the fear of abandonment, all those things came out because it was happening. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I very intentionally use the word crazy in kind of a reclaim type of way. Because especially that is such a trope in like the cheating affair narrative, right? Is the crazy partner, whatever, finding out. So I do very intentionally try to like reclaim that. But yeah, whatever I want to call it, like, I've gotten to a point where I don't have shame around the pockets of like things that I did that I'm like, oh yeah, that was a layer of Chelsea. That was when like the 3-year-old Chelsea was coming out and like running the show a little bit, some Timber style stuff. But really, I think that because so that's the theme of like, now I don't remember exactly how I phrased it, but mutual growth. It's almost like, because we've been through all the things and seen so many layers of one another, there's always kind of this undertone of like, we're good, we're here, and we can get through this. And this is going to become another part of our story that's like, there's some like cheesy Pinterest quote that I've seen that is like, talks about using, instead of letting your stories like weigh you down, using them as building blocks to like step up and like build a staircase. Clearly I'm butchering the cheesy Pinterest quote, but you get the general idea. So I feel like that's kind of the theme of like, we're really in it. And even in the moments, the little pockets where I'm really triggered, I feel safe enough to be really triggered and like blow up at him. I generally don't, because I know it isn't ultimately healthy, but like I feel safe enough to really like play with it and kind of get into the muck with him. Yeah. So that's my theme.
Cool. Well, I mean, look, I'm really happy that in this moment you both are in the self-improvement, moving up kind of Phoenix version of this. I'm sure you wouldn't have reached out if there aren't moments where it does not feel like this and where it feels trying, and I don't know if hopeless, but trying and difficult, and maybe the question of kind of like, are we ever going to be able to get past this to the other side comes up. And I think I definitely feel like I definitely heard enough to feel like there are some themes that will probably be important for both of you moving forward here. And one of them for you, for instance, John, as the guy who's willing to go to those lengths to solve a problem. The good news is this problem is going to, or the difficulties you guys are having will take time and take work to resolve. And I say good news because based on just a little bit that you've told me about your childhood, but there are probably a lot of other examples for this. I think you like that. I think you need things to require effort and work, because you get to be proud on the other end of the fact that you got to get it done versus like flicking a switch and going, oh, now the light's on. You know, you'd rather go build a light bulb. And what's that?
Less boring that way too.
Yeah. And I think you get off on the work, and that's a good thing. I'm not saying it at all in a bad way, but I'll put the equivalent here to a story that you'll relate to, which is saying, I'm going to drive my sister down because she wants to be with her friends is one thing. A lot of people would say, oh no, I'll drive you down. Getting in the car is the next step. Then a whole subset of people would go, yeah, do we really have to do that? Like, can we catch a flight, or maybe we'll go next weekend? So that's the next round. But then to get in the car and drive the 12 hours and then hang out for 2 days and then get back in the car and drive another 12 hours, doing that once is a thing a lot of people wouldn't do. Doing that for 6 months, every weekend, I'll do a short calculations for you. That's 24 times where you do 24 hours so that your sister could have a better time, right? And I guarantee that the 5th time you did it, and the 10th time, and the 12th time, those are part of you is like, damn, all right, here we go again, right? And you got in and you did the thing.
Yep.
This is going to feel a little bit like that sometimes, right? Because getting into the habit, doing the thing that will get you and Chelsea closer to one another, the thing that will get the intimacy that you both want, so that you don't have to run away anymore, because the only place to run to is back to Chelsea. And then it's like, all right, fuck it. I might as well just have this conversation now instead of in 6 months when I'm in more pain. I just want you to remember what it feels like to make the dedicated decision to go, okay, I'm not going to enjoy the next 12 hours. And you probably did the best you could. Like, you picked music to play on the way, or whatever you did, so that the ride would be as good as it can be. And that's totally relevant, right? The reason we come up with the best tools and the reason we do things like this is to make the ride as easy as it can be. But it's still a 12-hour ride twice in a weekend for 6 months in a row. It's like, after a while, it wears on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want you to remember that you're the guy who wants that. Because to me, that's the distinction. Who makes it to the other side and who doesn't is the people who get in the car and do the driving, not the people who talk about getting in the car and driving. We all want to go to Thailand. We all want to spend a month in Bali and go to wherever it is that we want to move to New York, whatever dream we have. Everybody listening right now has this thing that they want to address in their life. In the end, it takes the work. And so I want to A, congratulate you for it. B, next time something comes up and it feels like I cannot fix this, right? You're stuck in the moment. You're in the fight. You've had this fight 12 times. It doesn't seem like Chelsea's feeling better about it. I want you to remember 6 months of 24 hours of driving every single weekend, because the journey doesn't feel like you reached any destination in the middle of the journey. You know? Things can be getting better. And I want to bring it up right now, Chelsea, because you mentioned the triggers. Triggers are physiological reactions our brain has to events that are happening inside our head and outside of our heads. You ghosting on Chelsea a few times means that every single time you don't answer a text, or you don't pick up the phone, or you don't show up when she thought you would, there's this immediate fear in her brain. Maybe this is another one of those times. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what does it feel like in the moment? Like, not what are you thinking about? What does it feel like in the moment when you get triggered?
The primal, there's the immediate feeling of like unsafety, and immediate like, am I safe? And immediate kind of like hypervigilance that definitely stems from stuff in my childhood. But an immediate kind of, I'm not safe. And then how can I like fix it? Like that hypervigilance of like, okay, now, because it's like a lack of control sort of piece comes in. So like, okay, how can I get control back? Do I text him? Do I call him? And then starting to play out, because there's that immediate sort of body feeling. And then I get up into my head of like, how do I get the control back? If I text him this, then he'll respond this way, then I shouldn't send that, like, and I just start.
So you start playing out what will happen and all that. Quick question, just almost as an aside, but do you share location with each other?
No, we haven't. I've heard you guys talk about doing that, but no, we don't do that.
Okay. Because when you say lack of safety, I'm assuming, imagine on that 4th of July, if you knew where he actually was, the kind of relief that would bring in. That's, by the way, this wouldn't take away that feeling, because the feeling, let me get back to this basic and then we can get back to this location thing. That feeling, the feeling in your gut, the inability to breathe really deeply, and that knot in your stomach, all that is almost literally your brain remembering what it was like the first time you couldn't trust it, and the fear and all that stuff. It just takes you back.
Yeah.
But there's no way to change that by running away from it. So I like that you guys, that you get to feel like you can talk to John about it now, and that's nice. What I would like to bring into that conversation, if possible, is something along the lines of, John, do you feel like you have to defend yourself sometimes when these things come at you?
Yeah, because I don't know why I feel I need to defend myself when I'm still at work, and like I didn't text her to let her know that I was working an hour later, or if the trains aren't running like they normally do. Sometimes literally be in the elevator outside the apartment, and she'll be calling. Then I don't answer because I'm walking through the door.
So here's what I want you to recognize and think about. Chelsea doesn't control this. And so when this happens, what her brain needs and what will help long term to shift this fear response that she's having is there's 2 layers of this. One, when she reaches out in this fear, there's zero reason for you to defend what you're doing, because it's not about what you're doing. It's about the feeling she's having in the moment. So instead, I want you to shift to something, which is making your focus how to calm her down. Because there's nothing you can say that will make it okay. And if you defend why you're there in her head, especially based on the affair, the fears, what is he hiding and what's going on and what all that other stuff, that's all that comes in. But I wonder what it would feel like. Does that sound, you're shaking your head, does that sound about right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So I'm wondering what it would feel like this is literally, I'm going to role play a little phone call here real quick. And So Chelsea, imagine would you call him or text him?
It depends on what my brain is thinking is the best way to sort of alchemize in the moment, but probably call.
Okay. So you call.
After work, she would call.
If it's when he is at work, then I would text.
Yeah.
Okay. So pick one that feels natural right now and let me know what exactly you would say. And
okay. So I think either way, I think it would be the same, and it would be, "Hey, where are you?"
Okay. And I'm assuming the response would just be, like, if you're at work, you're at work, or if you're not, you would just tell your location.
Yeah. Walking to the train.
Be that simple.
Yeah. I don't think I'd get like specific, like what street, unless.
Well, and oftentimes I don't get a response.
Okay.
Less now, but yeah.
Yeah.
So can I ask a question? What would it feel like, Chelsea, to right from the beginning say, "Hey, I'm getting anxious. Do you mind telling me where you are right now?" Because I feel like there's a little bit of being coy with the whole playing it cool as if nothing's going on when you're freaking out on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a part of me that sometimes I do play with being a little bit more just very honest and direct. If here's what's up with me, can you support me? But there's a fear there of almost if I say I'm feeling anxious, where are you? That if there's a fear that'll internally sort of trigger for him, like, oh, she's worried. Like, it'll trigger him back to the point where I was constantly wondering where he was because he was cheating on me because of the affair. So that part of me feels like maybe if I play coy with it and then just play it cool, then he won't be defensive. And
Totally get it.
Yeah.
I totally get it. So let me backtrack, and we'll have to end so people aren't here for an hour and a half. But I think this will make sense, and we can wrap this up, and then we'll continue it. But remember when John didn't want to tell you that he didn't really like your dad anyway, and so he didn't really even understand why you were making such a big deal about this, but he didn't because he just wanted to pretend like he was there for you. But that didn't feel genuine because he wasn't really there for you because he didn't really like your dad, so he couldn't figure out why the hell you were freaking out about it so badly.
Yeah.
That led to you guys not connecting. It led to you guys not having real conversations about what was going on, no matter how difficult they were, no matter how uncomfortable it was for him to be there and say, "You know what? I'll do whatever you need for me to support you, but I got to tell you, I'm with your mom and your sister on this. Like, I don't get why you're freaking out about this so much. I'm kind of happy he left." Like, that's what he wanted to say, but he felt like he couldn't say it. So he didn't say it. So now he's resentful of your suffering. You're resentful that he's not showing up the way you want him to. And neither one of you are ever having that conversation with each other.
Yeah.
I understand that saying to John, "Hey, I'm freaking out a little bit. Can you just let me know where you're at?" By the way, I think the sharing location thing will at least resolve that part of it. But there will still be things that make you uneasy. Robbing him of the ability to deal with his discomfort over the fact that you're freaking out because he fucked up before and he should figure out ways to make you trust him again. Robbing him of that ability because you're just pretending to be comfortable when you're not really is taking away agency from both of you to be able to move forward and get what you need out of this.
I see your point.
Because you're not being honest, so he can't give you what you need in the moment because you're not being honest because he doesn't know that you need it.
Right.
And you're probably right, John. Would it trigger a little part of you kind of like that would retreat if Chelsea, let's say 3 times in a week, she said to you, "Hey, I'm freaking out a little bit. You're not home, and you said you'd be home. What's going on?" Would that trigger something in you?
Maybe a little bit, but the text, "Where are you?" is triggering, like, for me in and of itself, like, because I immediately go on defensive. I feel like it's coming from a place of accusing and not like, I don't even think about her.
Yeah.
Anxiety and like I don't know what she's going through except not trusting me. So I think that stuff is coming up for her. would be helpful. I can't say that it wouldn't trigger me a little bit, but
no, sure.
But I think it would be less so than immediately feeling defensive and like me being half hour late to getting home is me messing up again.
Yeah. And trust me, man, I mean, I don't know if it'll make you less triggered or more triggered, but we got to figure it out.
Yeah.
Because not knowing, this is the thing, a lot of people in life mistakenly believe that if they avoid their triggers, everything will get better. And it works exactly the other way around. Literally, from the most basic neuroscientific point of view, if you leave your triggers alone, they will continue to be just as powerful as they've ever been. If you don't address them head on, because there is no correct response he can give you to where are you? Because I wish he was a mind reader, but
nice.
And you probably do sometimes too, but
sometimes, not all the time.
Right. Again, right? The nice thing would be if he knew what's up,
yeah,
he could deal with that directly. And John seems like the kind of guy to me who would do what he needed to do to make you feel safe if he knew that you needed to feel safe. There will be moments, John, where you do not like the words that come out of her mouth because it's going to make you want to go back to a bottle a day just to forget how you fucked up.
Yeah. I believe that.
But that's okay.
Yeah. I haven't gone back, but I've felt that way.
Yeah. But that's okay because those feelings are real. And the reason you needed to go to a bottle a day back then was because you couldn't deal with the feelings. And so this is your partner, right? This is the person together you're going to figure out how to deal with those things, with those demons, with that need to be able to solve everything or else, with the endless number of ways that each one of us feels like we're not showing up the way we need to.
Mm.
For the rest of the world, you wear a mask. Yeah. That's what's so brave about doing this, right? Obviously there would be no last names, like all that kind of stuff, but you're here and you're talking about what's going on with you. And that's the scary part, is other people are going to know that I'm not perfect. You two know you're not perfect. There's no secret. So how can you actually rely on that? How can Chelsea become the person, even when the problem is Chelsea? Even when in your head you don't know how to deal with her? At least part of it. I'm not saying she needs to be the only person you do this with, because whether it's professional help or friends, we need to have a circle of support around us. But I hope there aren't areas of your lives where you can't talk to one another about them, including the affair. Sophie and I couldn't watch TV for like a year and a half or 2 years. You don't realize how much cheating there is on TV.
It's everywhere.
Everywhere. Every show has cheating. I don't care if it's Family Guy. In Family Guy, I forget the wife's name, but like Lois like dates the dog for a while. Like there's cheating everywhere. You can't avoid it. And we can joke about it here, but it gets really terrible when you go to watch a movie and then you have to leave in the middle because I can't fucking watch this. I can't sit here and watch this couple go through it. So if you avoid those conversations, you walk out of the movie, you never talk about it again, and you just kind of, oh, that never happened. But if you have the ability to understand, oh, wait, I can't make Chelsea not triggered, but I can be there to be part of the process, even if I'm the one that's being beaten up along it. I can be there for part of the process of healing her. Then guess what, John? You get to come back up as the guy who fixed the situation because you were there to address it. But if you don't and you avoid it, not only are you beating yourself up for not being able to fix it, but now Chelsea's not getting better, and it becomes an endless cycle.
Yeah, definitely. I think we generally do win, particularly when pop culture presents things to trigger us. I think we generally do. Not always. Sometimes we avoid, but for the most part, we kind of go into it a little bit, I think. Yeah.
It's great.
Lately, at least.
Yeah.
I avoided.
We both have. I mean.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, that's really good. How are you guys feeling right now?
Good.
Yeah.
I had to kind of feel in for a minute, but yeah, I think we're good.
So.
Yeah.
Okay. John, you were able to talk.
Yeah. It's hard to shut me up once I get going. Just the initial getting the ball rolling. I'm not a talker.
Good.
That's your story.
That's my story. It keeps me from talk.
Yeah. We all have one.
Yeah.
Again, I want to thank you guys so much for being willing to do this. We'll obviously do more of this with you guys because I can't even try to start imagining the percent of people who are listening and can relate to this, whether they're in the exact same situation as you or in one that is somehow close and they feel like they're trapped because they can't talk to anybody. And so I want to acknowledge again the bravery you both have and the ability to kind of step up and do this for yourselves. And honestly, I think you guys have already done a lot of work to get to this place. In the next round, I want to learn more about early childhood stuff and also about the move and what made you do that, because it sounds like a new chapter in your life.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
That's awesome. And it's nice to be able to do it together. It sounds to me like there are these little shifts, like the sharing of the information, being a little more transparent with when you're in pain, Chelsea, to give John the opportunity to step up and do something about it. And then John, whether it's right now with Chelsea, because right now there is nothing you can do to fix the triggers. You can just reduce their impact a little bit in the moment. And there will be times when you engage and it'll feel like, why are you asking this? Why are you bringing all this stuff up? How is this helping?
I've heard all of those questions before.
All of those things.
Yeah.
It'll take a moment to navigate. There is a little bit, Sophie calls it shopping for pain.
Yeah, that's a good term.
It is a very good term.
Yeah. It'll take you a moment, Chelsea, to figure out how much pain you want to shop for.
Yeah.
But I also want to give you the privilege of deciding that for yourself. Figuring out like, you know what, I don't want to know, or I want to know all the details, whatever, whatever level makes sense for you will help in the relationship so that it doesn't feel like there's any hiding and there's the transparency is there.
Right.
So are you guys down to follow up again in a little bit?
1,000%.
Yeah.
Cool. And I'd really love to, I'm sure everybody would love to hear kind of how things are going with a little bit more transparency. And you, I think just for you, John, just shifting the perspective you have about you won't be able to fix these things in the moment, but nothing is fixable in the moment other than like pipes and, toilets and things like that. The rest of the stuff takes time.
And that sort of thing. He likes that instant gratification.
Yeah.
You see progress.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things you slowly can, but.
Yeah, it just takes time. But it becomes so worth it. Because when you get to, 3 phases down the line, you look back and you go, wait, was that even ever us in that relationship? And so knowing that you've come this far is really, really cool. Cool, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Tune in next week. Bye. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Ignited podcast. We were so happy to have you along for this ride. Please go and subscribe to this. Leave us a review. We love hearing from you. And if you want more, don't forget to go to ignited.com, where all the podcast episodes are available with show notes and so many of the little details and links from each one of these interviews. And you can look at all the future events that we have going on, all the things that make Ignited so special, even beyond this recording. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week.